kind of response video to that masked analyst guy. He did 4 videos on the subject of the DMCA. So I thought I would just argue his suggested remedy, which I don't see as making much sense. So anyway, I don't want to go all the way from the beginning. So if you understand how the process works at all, if you file a DMCA, the other party either counterclaims or they don't. They either take down the video or they counterclaim. If they counterclaim, it's supposed to go to court. That's how the law is supposed to work. So to me, the problem with his suggested change, which would be that basically, I guess, it would, he's saying you would withhold the personal information. So the person would file a counterclaim, but they would not give their personal information to the person who filed the DMCA. So the person who filed the DMCA presumptively would have no court to go to. So that's a big problem right there. Is the court of proper jurisdiction is going to be in the defendant's court, the one closest to them. That's the preference. So anyway, let's say they give at least the state and county or whatever, the street location or something that gives the person at least what county and in what state to file this lawsuit, and they John Doe it, and then they subpoena YouTube for the person's name. So here the person's paid $350 to defend their material, and they don't even have a name of a person they're suing. And then they're going to have to file a motion for this to subpoena the actual name of the person they're suing, so they can put the person's name on the lawsuit and they can have a proper lawsuit. Now the only person that could try to quash that summons for that information would be YouTube. So then YouTube would have to essentially be defending the person's case. They'd have to sit there and argue that there's some reason why this person has or has not violated copyright. So YouTube would have to not only watch the video, but ascertain whether or not it's a copyright violation and whether or not they want to get involved in it anyway. And especially in terms of writing documents and such. You can't, somebody who's anonymous can't be making petitions to the court. It's just ludicrous. It just doesn't work that way. So the actual person couldn't file a motion to quash when they haven't even been named in the lawsuit. This can't be done that way. I see no practical way that that's going to be a solution here. Nobody's going to go for that. At least certainly none of the copyright holders are going to go for that. So forget it. I don't think there's any chance in hell that that's going to be a solution that goes anywhere. So I don't see what's the point of writing all these letters and doing all this complaining if you don't come up with a solution that's viable. Some sort of replacement, some sort of augmentation to the process that makes it more fair, because that's just plainly not fair. To me, a simple solution is the thing you're trying to avoid is giving people easy access to other person's personal information by simply filing a DMCA. So the easy solution in one respect, or an easy deterrent to create, would be just for YouTube to establish the ironclad policy. If you file a DMCA and the person counterclaims, the case must go to court. And if the person doesn't go to court, then YouTube should suspend that person's account. It's that simple. That's it. One strike and you're out. I mean, when you file a DMCA, you're basically swearing that you intend to defend your material and that you intend to take it to court. And all you're asking the YouTube to do is provide you with this information. And if this person's going to sit there and leave that content up, you have a right to sue them for violating your copyright. They've been warned of a copyright violation. And if they continue to leave the video up, you have a right to tell them, I'm suing you. It's that simple. So anyway, that would be an easy deterrent from somebody. Obviously, they'd have to sacrifice their YouTube account to get this personal information. And so I'd say that adds some balance to the equation. I'd further say that I think anybody filing a DMCA, it wouldn't be unreasonable for YouTube to oblige somebody to have a deposit with them of $10 or some other figure, just to establish an identity of that person who has filed a DMCA, just to make sure that they're not lying and that they're not a fraud, and that there's some protection against them being a stalker or some other thing, because they're going to have their information is going to be held by YouTube. So to me, that protects some protections. And this, this idea, the masked analysts think everybody should have all this anonymity on the internet. That just doesn't work. It works both ways, unfortunately. Because then you have the anonymous terrorists, essentially, the people who can screw with other people's lives and get away with it because there's no accountability for their behavior. And that's really what you want, accountability. Accountability is a good thing. All right, harassment and intimidation and all these other things are bad things, and certainly people's privacy shouldn't be violated. But there's nothing wrong with people being accountable, and especially if you have already in place a pretty, it's a pretty difficult process to go through to impose accountability. And I think it's kind of nonsense to say, well, let's make the process even harder. No, it's already an onerous task to impose accountability. It's essentially, we should be arguing the opposite. It should be easier to impose accountability. And so, I think it's a stupid, your solution is not a solution. It's not practical in the first place, and then second, it's just not going to happen. I mean, pragmatically, it's not going to happen, and logistically, it doesn't serve any purpose. It wouldn't accomplish anything. It would just delay the legal process. So I think a real solution is to have real penalties for false DMCAs. DMCAs filed without an intent to go to court. That's a false DMCA. Those should be discouraged harshly. But otherwise, people that have a sincere effort to protect their material shouldn't have any more obstacles put in their way to do that. It's just bullshit. It's just nonsense to say there should be more obstacles. So anyway, that's my continued contribution to the subject. So I think the real solutions have to be, you have to make this simpler, not more complicated. And it just makes things more, you're just adding an extra step by saying somebody has to subpoena to get the information regarding who they're actually suing. It's just it's just preposterous. YouTube is not going to take on that responsibility to decide whose information it's going to hand over and who's not. And they're the only ones that can quash that subpoena. I mean, that's just a legal fact. So, enough said.